Hello, I'm Weldon Oliver. I'm located at Oliver's Art, 138 Maple Street, downtown Florence. And today we're going to paint a beautiful picture of the North Umpqua River over in the valley near Roseburg where I grew up as a boy. And I've started out by putting white on my 11 by 14 canvas here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to establish a little bit of shadow in my picture so I can accent the light. Taking my 1-inch brush, I'm pulling down a little white paint, adding just a little bit of ivory black, and I'm stirring it out so I have a nice neutral gray. And I'm going to come up, I'm going to scumble this gray, just rub it very briskly. It's a shaking, scrubbing motion. Very much like scrubbing spaghetti out of a pot with a Brillo pad. That's going to be the gray behind the light. I'm going to smooth this down with an X stroke. Next I'm going to pull down some phthalo blue and stir it into that gray. A little bit of white, a little more black to just soften it up. Ooh, there it is. My observation is that black and phthalo blue are very pleasing to the eye. Up here, where the sky is going to go, I'm just going to scumble a little bit of that color, and even down below where the water might go. Take care of the edge right now. And again, I'm going to soften these colors. As I begin to map in the mood of the day. I have a nice gray going here. You might wonder what the gray is about. We're going to go into the springtime near the Umpqua River with the overhanging foliage down by the North Umpqua, say Amaker Park, where I used to play as a kid. Next thing I'm going to do is take my fan brush. I'm getting a little white on it, a little yellow, and a little touch of black in the yellow. Black and yellow make a very natural pine needle gray green. That color right there, a lot of that in the forest. I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to begin scumbling with my fan brush, sprinkling that color around. I'm going to bring my sky down into the forest in a few moments. I'm going to come down here and even add just a little bit of that beautiful glazed green-gray into the river water where the sun might come down. Using the fan brush, I'm going to now smooth my atmosphere with some X strokes. Simply softening a background. It doesn't look like much yet. If you take a close look at nature, you'll see a great deal of gray in the background. And Rembrandt taught us that we need to bring the light out of dark. And we're going to begin doing that now. I'm going to get a little white and some yellow, stir it together. And the color comes up a much more brighter yellow, such as sunlight might do. Here we go. Sprinkling it here, a little bit off center, a little up toward the sky. And again, I'm going to add a little bit down where the water goes. And you just see the situation beginning to build there. It's like looking into a tunnel or like looking up a riverbed into the forest. You can begin to imagine the glow of the light coming out of the background, a little more white. On the fan brush, I'm going to begin lightening the sunny area back here. Notice the jiggling motion of the brush. And then smooth it down. Scumbling. And one last time, again, as Rembrandt showed in many of his pictures, the brightest object, like the tip of a nose of a portrait, might have some very clear white. And your eye begins to imagine that you see light back there. I like to keep it loose and broken as if tree boughs crunching in between there. While I have my brush with white on it, I'm going to come up and introduce a few clouds. They too just drift with rather scrubbing-like motions, much the way that the wind would do in the sky. If a little more light over there. And I'm just going to soften it all at the bottom. And now I'm going to ease a little more twilight up here. Just rolling a little white in there, misting it all up. And who would believe from such few colors that you could begin to map something that starts to look like distance? This is what goes on behind the forest. In the sunshine, there's a lot of green reflective light out there. I'm going to pick up my big brush again, and this time I'm pulling down Terra Verte green. I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of the purple in it, even a little bit of the black, because I still want to stay in the gray area, a little white. And I'm going to stipple or push some tree-like shapes. That's just a matter of pushing the brush. Kind of a stepping motion. Add a little more green. Bring something down around where the ground tilts. That pushing, crushing motion of the brush makes those tree-like shapes. In the distance, a little more green, it is still gray, down where the water goes. That would be natural, a little reflection down there. Our painting is already beginning to take up certain areas. A little white worked into the brush comes up with a very light, tiny bit of yellow, a rather light gray, and little spots of it. You can imagine the tree limbs hanging out into the sky, where everything's just a little bit lighter. Broken shapes make the trees. You can't draw lollipop trees, it doesn't work. Broken shapes are what give you that light over shadow affair. And where once I had only the sky and light, now I begin to have some form of background. I'm going to change all that in a moment, but before I leave this area, I'm going to take a moment, using my knife, I'm going to scratch a vertical, what artists call verticals. They're longer at the edges, shorter and closer together, smaller in the middle. A few Y's and K's, if you will. It's all about suggestion. That's nothing more than the power of suggestion. That your eye now wants to believe that there are tree trunks back there because you saw something standing up. I'm going to add a little more highlight to that area by coming down and getting just a little bit of yellow and white and a little bit of the purple. Again, keep it very light. A mixed gray color, no pure colors yet. And I'm just going to go ahead and add a few more colors that overlap those lines I just made. So the lines aren't pure lines anymore. They're like the broken branches and tree trunks that you would see as you look through the foliage of trees in the distance, with the light glinting off the sides of the tree trunks. And we will be right back in a moment and add the next layer. Welcome back. I'm going to take a napkin and gently wipe out that big brush. And now I'm coming down and getting ivory black into it. I'm going to establish some values. After all that hard work in those trees, there is another layer of them. And I do need to see them. I need them to branch out, if you will, so I can lay my next layer of light over top of them. This is all about putting light on dark. We never leave that strategy in everything that we do. Make sure the darks are strong enough that they will accommodate the trees and the light that I'm about to bring. And again, there would be some reflection of that in the water. And at this moment, I'm going to come again with this knife. Now, one more time, establish the verticals. They're loose, they're just suggestions. All they do is give some sense that you see something standing up back there. I'm reaching over here now, I'm pulling down yellow, and I'm stirring it with a little white. And it comes up a gray-green, and gray-green is what I need. As I begin crossing the darkened areas that I've put in, the paint mixes. If you're wondering why go to all the trouble of making so many grays, nature uses a lot of shadow light, especially in the areas around overhanging canopies of trees. Again, it's all suggestion. I'm adding a little phthalo blue now. A little phthalo blue to my yellow, making it a slightly colder blue than what I had before. For the shadow side of branches, treetops, and all the various canopies in the forest. A little in the water. Here it comes. Now my next step, I'm wiping out the fan brush. I need to establish what causes a viewer to see us come forward. A little bit of white, not a lot. Work up some black on the fan brush. I'm going to begin by bringing a pathway or a riverbank on a diagonal like that. That's going to give me perspective. I need diagonals leading me to the middle. On this side, they rather go out, sloped that way, and then they just turn the corner and go back a little bit. And I'm going to take this moment and darken in the riverbank a bit. This is going to establish my shadow for adding the lights in a moment. The viewer can already begin to see how the tunnel goes back. Things are looking real good here. Before I leave that area, I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow, stir it around in here, a little bit of black, a little phthalo blue, white. But I'm going to bring enough yellow into it that you can begin to see the green. And green, of course, to the eye means that things are getting closer. Things are just starting to get a little bit closer to the front where your eye picks up gray-green. Nothing too bright yet. It's not so bright that it takes over the foreground. Just a suggestion. While I'm here, I'm going to pull yellow down, put white into it, stir it. And for the first time, I'm going to add just a few lighter yellow greens. Notice the tapping of the brush. The brush is designed to do most of your work for you. There we go. Even back here in the distance, the irregular shapes that the fan brush makes looks very much like trees. A little more light down where the grass will grow. for instance in there. Kind of a tapping motion again. Back up the riverbank, sweep a little bit across. Little of that color in the water. Realism is starting to take place. You see something, you're not quite certain what it is. And this is what happens in nature. You look far enough back into the middle, things have a tendency to just blend together. That's why all our colors are gray. We need them so. To put down the fan brush and pick up my liner brush, a little white on it, and some yellow ochre and some purple. The yellow ochre and the purple together are going to come to kind of a wooden shadow that I need to place right across here for a trunk that has leaned over. I'm going to harden that now with a little bit more brown in it and a little bit more purple. While I'm here, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to bring vertical lines of the purple, yellow ochre, brown that I have in my brush. Not too large, but there's enough change that from the distance you begin to see something closer. Wiping out the liner brush, I'm going to get a little white on it and place the white right on the edge of the log and just tap it in a little bit. So your eye can begin to see a little bit of sunlight on that log. Coming down next, I'm going to pull more black into my brush, get a little bit of Oliver's Art Medium to loosen the paint. Along in front, there are going to be trees that rise up with their own limbs, some coming in from the side, passing through. Those up and down strokes blend the paint as it goes. This is what your eye picks up. In the forest, especially where the trees hang free, you begin to sense more shadow. And we're going to come right back and finish this painting. Just a moment. Welcome back. It's time to put in our foreground. First I'm going to reach over, get a little white on my fan brush and pull down a little Viridian green. And Viridian green is a gorgeous blue-green. I'm just going to move that blue-green into some of the black and yellow I had before, but I notice that it's just a stronger color now. It's just got a little bit deeper of a base to it. I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to come over here. I'm using the side of my fan brush, and I'm just establishing a few hanging branches that are a little bit closer. They seem closer because they're a little stronger in color, a little more paint. I'm using the blue-green to create the shadow side of these trees, especially down here where the grass goes around the corner a little bit like this, and a little bit in the water. Ooh, there it is. Just trying to create that image that something has come a little closer to the front. And the reason we know it is the color is just a bit darker and a little bit more vivid. And now I'm going to reach down and pick up some black in this fan brush. And I'm going to begin to establish my foreground where I have an island that reaches out here. And it's already visible that the darkened foreground, a little phthalo blue in that black, that hard value in the foreground causes a viewer to imagine that something close has now come into view. And that was nothing more than straight up and down brushes of the fan brush to create those very large overhanging oak trees that I remember. Huge trees, there's usually a very large limb out each side. And they tend to hang over the water whenever they get the chance. So as a young fellow, growing up in the valleys, I thoroughly enjoyed my trees. I'm going to take my fan brush now, wipe it off. I'm picking up a little bit of white on it, and I'm just going to spot it down the side of this tree. And then just dance it inside a little bit. Gives the viewer that there's something there you can see on the broken side where the light hits the tree. But I don't want to lose all that dark. I need those values. And now I'm going to begin establishing my lights. I'm going to reach over and pull down yellow. Again, stirring the yellow out with black is going to give me a nice gray-green, very much like what you'd see around an oak tree. Very natural color. There will be that color down here where the grass grows. Just slight pushes with the fan brush establish the direction of the paint there. That was the start. Pulling down Viridian again. Viridian is that blue-green, a little bit of the yellow-green in it. I'm going to put the shadow of the boughs. And again, what I've noticed about trees is they have a tendency to drag or droop, if you will, leaves and branches together. They just kind of hang. They hang very, very loosely. As a painter, I know I need my values if I'm going to establish lights. So I'm taking this opportunity to do that. And I will put a little bit of this blue-green on the bottom for shadow under the tree while I have the chance. I'm slowly building my way up to realism in the front. I'm going to wipe out the brush again. This time, when I go back, I'm going to pick up some yellow and permanent green light. I'm just going to change the look of that green by adding another color. Permanent green light has a very vivid green to it, very much like what spring is in Oregon when everything comes out and blooms. It's a gorgeous color. It is going to take some of it now. I had to shovel it up to create that feeling that I do imagine the texture of newly born leaves making their way out. They've just sprouted. And the whole area of a forest and the landscape around it is just vivid, vivid green. Little of that green will find its way down on the bank, and a little bit of it will find its way in the grass. And of course the water. Anything on the brush goes in the water, no problem. Now I begin to see how the tree is bringing things forward. I'm going to wipe my brush again. And this time I'm going to get a bit more yellow and white. New growth in trees often is translucent. It's partially transparent with sunlight. Things just seem to glow in it. And you see what happens when the yellow and permanent green begin to walk together. They just step back into the shadows. And I always imagine that. You don't really just see one thing. You see the light. It's like it's walking around the corner into the shadow a little bit. Here comes the tree, there goes the grass. where the sun would hit, of course. And a little bit in the water. One last time, I'm going to wipe out the brush. White and yellow, very bright. The final highlights. Final bright, touching lights that let you know that you're there. You are there on the grass that day. And picking up the knife, a little white on the edge will give me my water lines. Here we go. Water lines across there. Water lines are just horizontal movements that go across the colors you've already made. And there'd be a little bit back up here where the bank goes around the corner. And there is our beautiful spring day, the North Umpqua River. Thank you for joining me. I'm Weldon Oliver. Come and see me at Oliver's Art.